Hello, everyone. I am Bill Golis with CodaBears. Today, I'm going to be presenting some stuff on some business process automation that you can do within Epicor ERP. And these are things that are typically set up by administrators or by power users. Without further ado, we're going to do a quick PowerPoint deck. Then I'm going to do some presentation on change logs. And then the second portion will be a quick deck and then some demonstrations on the functions and for auto printing. So change logs. There are no default change logs in ERP. Okay, they need to be set up as needed by user or admins. And we set the change log, your collection method in company config. So when you make a change log, they can be collected daily by user or for each transaction. Typically, the default is daily, and that's what most people do that I've seen. It's just how it's displayed, how it's collected within the change log window, and which we'll see. Change logs are created via BPM, Business Process Management, and for change logs, it needs to be an in-transaction directive. For change logs, there's in transaction versus standard. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But when we're going to do change logging, you really need to think about what you want to log and and what's important for you to track. Because what we're looking at is within our records, and once they're created, what's being changed, what fields within those records are being changed, from what to what, who's making those changes and when. And you really need to decide what's important to you. One of the pitfalls to change logging that we've seen out there in the real world is people want to log everything. You can select all the fields. Hey, I want to see everything that changes. Well, every time that you that BPM is triggered, there's going to be a lot of system activity and database read writes depending on what is changing, which can lead to poor performance and excessively large log files. We have seen log files get humongous when people track, everything. So what are some common processes to log? A quotes and sales orders. What are you telling your customers that you're going to be just selling them for how much? A what and when. What did they order? What did you promise? And those things can be very fluid as negotiations happen and you go back and forth. And it can be valuable to understand when things have changed and who made changes. To find out and to audit your processes and to be able to improve things. And this also can be used in auditing for compliance purposes as well. To things like HIPAA and other regulations and requirements, it can drive what you change logs. Also, your jobs and engineering is often logged. And purchase orders, again, that's something that can be very fluid. You're going to go back and forth with your supplier, and you may change your POs. So those are often tracked as well. There is some default logging, and it's not really logging. They're called the audit logs. It's available for quotes and for jobs and engineering. And there might be one other or two other places that'll help me out if I haven't located them, but basically this is a process within ERP that you force a user to enter a text note when there's a change of status within that record. For instance, when you have a quote that you're going to change to quoted, at that point, if you're set up to create the audit logs within a company config, it's going to force you to put in a text into a field. But the drawback there is that you can put in whatever you want. You just have to have something, you can put in a period. So this doesn't force anyone to do anything. If they're not going to be disciplined, they're just going to save their initials or something like that. So you can't always tell what changed, but you can see, who was there and when it was flipped from the quoted or engineered. So on the data directives for logging, for example, sales order logging, which is going to be one of my examples, what fields do you want to track? So you look at those fields on your screen. And if you're not sure what field and what table it's on, you can of course use the field help to see, hey, do I need to track the a sales order header, the sales order detail, or the sales order release, etc. You can track multiple tables with multiple change logs on the same records if need be. For instance, on sales order logging, this would be likely on the sales order release. I'm sorry, sales order detail, where you would track the part number in case they change what's being bought, what's the order quantity, what's the pricing. That's certainly something that is tracked. And what are the dates you're needed by discounts, etc. And as I said, you can use the field help to identify what table you're going to log against.
Hey, Bill, we've got a question from Robert. Would you recommend Audit Log on Part Master?
Again, and with the Audit Log, that's just going to force them into putting something in there. So, so the user that's going to be, changing. So on the Part Master, I'm not certain that there is an Audit Log there. There is on engineering for parts. So I have to verify that. But yeah, again, with the Audit Log, it just forces that you enter something into a text field. So if you want to do your change logging, I would recommend it for the Part Master. But again, that would be set up in this process that I'm going to show you here with a BPM, and then you're going to select what fields on the Part Master. And the Part Master is multiple tables. It's part rev, it's part plant potentially. So again, that can get complicated on how it all depends on what you want to track. I hope that answers your question. So change logs. On the change logs, how long do they last? Well, forever, unless you do something. So the table in SQL that is written to on the change logs from the standard BPM change log process is called CHGLOG, and that can be cleaned up using SQL. If you need to, maintain your change logs for a set amount of time based on a ISO or on HIPAA, and you can build a process in SQL that will be automated. So every quarter or every month, it's going to do purge records that are older than 7 years or than 6 months or whatever that process might be. But if you don't maintain it, it's going to just to continue to grow. Any questions on those notes before I go into a demo on change logs?
Michaela's asking, how do I clean up change logs if I'm in the cloud?
That is a question that I cannot answer right now. That is an excellent question, as a matter of fact. Does anybody, if anybody knows?
I think Michaela, you might be able to use a scheduled function, which actually is something that David Erickson just brought up. So you could do a scheduled function that would go and clean out the change log based on a timestamp. That might work. And then we have a question from Benjamin. Doesn't direct SQL editing void warranty? It doesn't really void your warranty, Benjamin. It's just usually not recommended. You want to make sure you know exactly what you're doing when you do the direct SQL. So changelog is not something where 6 other parts of the system are kind of depending on the values that are in there. Everybody writes to it. They read to it when they go to do the audit log, but it's not like it's critical data. So it's not something you want to do willy-nilly. You want to make sure you know what you're doing, but you want to be very careful about that.
And yeah, that would be one of the few tables that you would be able to delete without having any problems at all. But again, as Fred said, yeah.
You could also use an updatable BAQ to remove the record if you wanted to do that inside the framework. If you don't have access in the cloud to SQL, you could use an updatable BAQ to do that as well.
And then Graham is wondering if there is a purge function that's available to do purging of the change logs. And I'm not sure if the purge covers that. Does anybody else have experience?
Yep, Patrick Winterd answered that a little further down.
Cool.
Yes, you can also purge with the DMT, Mike.
So purging with a purge and summarize includes change logs. Yep. And that is available for cloud, Michaela. So you can do the purge and summarize. And then the purge with DMT is also a recommendation. And Bill, what would you consider large for changelog?
That's, I guess that would strictly depend on how big how much disk space you have. But, if it's going to be, tens of gigs, yeah, that would be, I consider that large because you're just storing text, so.
I would bounce this question. Tracy, are you out there from Bruno?
Tracy Winkleman is. I've unmuted her.
I know her company, because they're medical equipment manufacturers, have change logs turned on almost every field, every table. Excuse me.
I got it unmuted. I'm here.
Yeah, there you are, Tracy.
Yep, I'm here. We actually, so our change log table is really big, and we used to purge it like every 18 months, but we actually haven't purged it since we went to Epicor 10.
How big is big?
Fast enough?
What's that?
I was wondering how big is big for you?
Oh, I haven't checked the table size in a while. It's smaller than my PC inputs table, so that's good.
Yep.
Our entire database is almost a terabyte. We're pushing a terabyte.
Gotcha. Where are you there?
Tim, for your question regarding referential integrity concerns, with the change log, there is no referential integrity to those. It would be if you deleted the part but didn't delete the change log regarding the part, but removing the change log, there's nothing that connects to the change log. Everything goes to it.
Anything else?
What is the best path to add a change log to a table that doesn't have one by default? I think that's what you're going to go through, isn't it, Bill?
Yes, I am. And just to be clear, the default that exists is just the audit log, where it just prompts for you to type into a text field what you're doing. So it's incumbent upon the user to put in what they want to record. That's all that tracks. And then, when that record is changed of state from quoted to not quoted or engineered to not engineered, etc. So there is no default change logs, that I'm going to track, in the fields from what to what and when that occurred. In other words, on the actual change logs I'm going to show you, if I change the quantity of the sales order from 100 pieces to 50 pieces, it's going to show, that it changed from 50 to 100 on this day, and the change was done by this user. Is that more?
You're good to go.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to create some change logs. So we should be seeing Epicor 10 now?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want to do first is just bring up a quick sales order that I have here. I just created the sales order, and it has a line on it, and it has all the information in here. And a change log is this little book icon, like an open book here. So when I check that, it shows that it's empty here. And you can select in here, what date you want to start it for the change log. It defaults to wide open. So when you get here, if I hit refresh again, there's nothing there. Now, let's say that I make a change to this. Let's go to the line level. Let's change that quantity to 100 pieces, and let's save that record. Look at the change log, and look, it's still empty. I'll refresh. Okay, so let's set up a change log on sales order entry. And we want to track the things that are happening to the lines. That's going to be sales order detail. So we're going to go to Data Directive A maintenance. Okay, and this is Just so I'll head there by the menu. We're going to go under under system management, business process management. And then we have a data directive maintenance. When it comes to BPMs, there's data directives and method directives. That discussion is beyond the scope of today's presentation, but if anyone wants to know, we'll be happy to help you out. So data directives are tracking when there's a change to specific fields on your tables. Okay, so we're going to look for the sales order detail, which is going to be ordered. It's an order detail, I know, but I'll just look it up here. Here's all the ones that are related to order. Order detail comes up first. I will select that. As discussed for change logs, we need to be in transaction. And one of the reasons, there's a standard and in transaction. In transaction is tracking this information before it's written to the database in what they call a temporary table. And I believe the reason for this in the change logs is you can track multiple fields being changed. Okay, and that's what they call multiple dirty rows. Whereas there is multiple fields within the record that you're changing in a temporary table prior to writing them to the database. And that's what this is able to do. Excuse me. So we will create a new in transaction directive here. We're going to call it change log. And we will save that. And once we save this, I'm going to go right ahead. I'm going to enable this BPM so don't forget. And I'm going to head to the designer canvas here. And you always have to start, and then you have to have a condition to fire the BPM. So we're going to take our start. We're going to go to our condition, and we're going to add a new condition. Now, on change logs, you could do different conditions, but it's typical that we're going to do that at least one updated row in the specified table. What that is saying is that something's changed on that table. And that would fire the BPM. Now, what fields you're going to track, we're going to choose here. So one updated row in a specified table. Now, you may think we're done here. If you save this now, it's going to fail because you have to specify the table, even though the table that you have to offer is just this one, which is what they got. So, okay. So once we have that, that's going to fire that BPM when we change any field on the order detail table. And then what I want to do right here, to see there's an option for change log. So this is very simple one. Just pop it right in. If this condition is true, we're going to fire up that change log. And right away, it goes to the selected fields on the specified table. We're going to go up here. Again, our only choice here is the order detail because that's the table that we're doing this data directive on. So what should we track? Well, I want to track like the unit price, anything to do with price and quantity. When these things change in a discount, I'd like to know that because that's going to affect my revenue from this particular order. And what else? How about things like when it's due, if it's going to change my delivery dates? Yep, that can be a factor. And that's under, where are those at for dates? I should have sorted by, yeah, so, and one note, people might say, I need to track the changed by. That's, what user did it. That's by default. You're going to get the change by, like what user was logged in for the change, what the date was, and what the time was. Okay, so you don't need to track that. That's just redundant. And we're going to look in here, and we're going to add in what else do we want. How about our, there's the, I'm missing this one. We're looking for our needed by date. You know what? Let's go with, yeah, there we go. It's going to be need by date. That's one that's important. And is there anything else we should track? That's good enough for now. So hey, we're tracking the pricing, the quantity, and the need by date. So we're going to say okay there. And that should be all we need. We're going to save that canvas. Always when you're doing BPMs, either data or method, and once you do your workflow design, hit your validate, okay? And if that takes a long time, sometimes that means something's wrong. But this one should be straightforward. Let's see.
While that's running, Bill, Mike is asking, is there any disadvantage to not using the condition block? So if I just go straight to change log.
Yeah, well then, the system won't fire the BPM. You have to give it a condition that's going to say, here's when I fire. In other words, a BPM is it has to be triggered by something. On a method directive, it's going to be when a method is called. On a data directive, it's going to be when data's changed. So you have to tell it what data are you looking for that change to occur, and at that point, that's when it will, that's when the code will run. Not sure why this is taking so long.
Also, Mike, for that disadvantage, if you delete a record trying to write to the change log, you really don't need, because Epicor is going to delete that as well with it. So you'd probably only want to do add or update for a change log.
So as we can see here, our validation came through successful and no issues were found. I need to close the designer, and I want to save the changes. And then you always want to save the data directive here too, and be sure that it's enabled. So now we have a change log set on our order detail in transaction. So we're going to go back to that order. Okay, and we were tracking the changes in quantity. So we'll put that down to 50. We were checking the pricing changes as well. So we'll make that $5 now. I think we tracked a discount too. We'll go to 5%, and we were tracking the dates, right? So we'll go to need by, and we'll make that 28th. Oh, I don't know why that happened. Hold on a second here. Oh, I think I did know what happened. Okay, so, and this might be something that changed because I believe that we're not going to see a change log here, are we? Oh no, I don't know why that error was thrown. Let's see. Here's the record from that save. Here's the detail, and we see here's the user, Epicor. Here's the time, and we know the date from here, date stamp. And here's the changes. Price went from 1 to 5. That's when we're tracking. Also a document price went through. An order went from 100 to 50. The discount changed, and the need by changed. Okay, and then also the order changed again from 50 to 0. And why was that? Let's refresh that. That must have shown the initial from 0 to when it first was created. But this wasn't running. No, these are all at the same time. Not entirely certain why it did that through the air, but I'm not going to debug that right now. It will move on, but that did work. Again,
the changes recording there, Bill, is the business objects behind the scene. Changed the value down to 0, then brought it back up to 50, then ran the pricing logic. So it's not something the user changed, but it's something the system changed, so it's still tracked it.
Gotcha. So that's associated with the fields that we're tracking. So we're going to see that, huh?
Yep.
So let's say that we're doing our change logs. We have something occur in the business, and we go to our logs, and oh, hey, we're not tracking that field. We see the pricing. This was something else that changed. We can just go into our already existing data directive here, and we can go in and we can change and add additional fields. Of course, these will only fire going forward, but we can always do that. So when we head to our change log here, we can just go to selected fields and we can say, oh, how about the description? How about, the order comment, if that changes, how about the ship comment? And we add those in and we save, and then those will be tracked as well. All right. I was going to do another example of basically the same thing on a different table. How are we for time, Fred?
You're doing fine. You've got another
25, 30 minutes.
25 minutes.
Yeah, but I have to do the other for auto print. I'll do a quick one for another table. If anyone has any, you know what? I'm going to look at part. Okay, just to show, because that was asked about. So we're going to go back here to our data directives. We're going to look for part and see what's available here. And there's going to be a lot of these available under part. So you see, when you asked about part, holy moly, these are all associated with part. Of course, there is your just your standard part. Now, that's what we'll do for now. We're going to go with in transaction. And here, I'm going to actually, I don't care about the spelling because we're in a hurry. We're going to save that. We're going to go to our designer. So for a condition here, again, just so you understand, when we add the condition, we're saying, when does this fire? So there's a whole bunch of different things you could say, if a certain field was changed from something to something, so if the part was changed from active to inactive, or if, and more importantly, from inactive to active, but on a change log, if you want to watch when anything happens, it's going to be when and when the field it changed from any to another. I'm sorry, no, the row was changed. I don't understand that. Yeah, at least one updated row in specified table. So then we're going to go to our change log here. We're going to pop in if that's true and something's changed. And then here is the 250 or whatever fields that are available in your part. Just so if a description changes, if the class changes, if the if the price changes, so there might be a lot of things that you want to track, but you'll see that you're not going to be able to track things like against the revision here. You have to go to part rev, or things like your safety stock and such, which should be on the part plant table. But we could set up a change log on part, a change log on part plant, and a change log on part rev that all would fire when you make changes to any of those tables, and they would record what's going on. Again, the only downside is how much space you're going to use, and if you're tracking a lot of things that you change together, it'll take a little more time to save the record. So we'll just, we'll put a bunch of things on here. And we did, so the description, we did the different dimensions. And so we're going to save that. We're going to make it enabled. We're going to go out to part. What went wrong here? Something's up with this install, because that doesn't look like there's anything wrong with it. Cal or Fred, you see anything wrong here?
And you hit save, and what was the
Yeah.
problem?
It says that the table name property isn't defined.
Your screen is out of sync. You may have to log back into Epic, or you're not going to get into another Data Directive probably.
Gotcha. Damn it. We'll come back in while we're waiting. If there's any questions. So I'm probably going to move on to the auto print because I got a quick deck on that, and then I have presentations or a demo as well. And I'm thinking we're going to be short on time. So let me get the other one up here. Okay, we're going to go back to monitor 3, and we're going to talk about auto printing. So auto printing is another function that's out of the box with Epicor, but it needs to be built. Just like change logs, there is no default auto print where you can just turn it on. You may have noticed on some screens, like on in our invoice and on one of the other ones that you have on sales order entry, that there's a checkbox for that, and I'll cover that in a second here. So this is not out of the box, right? They're set up by admins or users. An auto print allows you to preview SSRS reports, labels, and bartender labels too, to what Karen talked about earlier. Also, you can auto email reports and forms from within Epicor. And the auto print ready that I mentioned, checkbox that you've seen, that's basically there to link to the BPM that I'm going to show you here, such that you can, fire that from the like manually from the screen, where you're going to select that box, do your thing, and then when you save the record, it's going to happen. But if you select that box and you haven't, put a BPM that's monitoring that field, nothing's going to happen. So it's kind of a funny checkbox that has nothing behind it until you build it. The auto print is also driven by BPM data directives. But here we use standard data directives. It won't work with the in process because you have to have the record saved to the database for the report to generate. I was going to do 3 examples. We'll see how time goes. I was going to do an auto print preview, an auto print to printer, and an email. So I'll at least do the preview and the auto email. I was going to do it on order entry to print the sales order acknowledgement. And then on the order header to do to the order acknowledgement and to print it actually to the a printer, because you can never actually spit out to a printer that you identify. For instance, it's going to drop out in the printer that's out, by the accounting, where they're going to take it and file it or mail it or whatever. These can also be used for things like, labels on receiving. So, even if the receipt's entered from in the shipping office, it can print at a label printer that's out, by the dock, so your labels are going to print where you need them once this kicks off, and you build that routing into the BPM auto print. And then the quote we were going to do to email, which I will show you that as well. Yeah, that's a little different because you have to set up where the email is going and some other parameters in there as well. And so, yeah, there won't be any questions here yet. I doubt. I want to walk through this process so we have time to see this in action. Unless there is any questions, that was kind of quick. I just wanted to kind of tell you what I'm going to 8% here.
There were a handful of suggestions before you go too far regarding the error that you were getting, is they're saying you didn't pick a table in the condition block. So the system was not letting you save okay to that method directive. There was no table in there.
You know what? They're exactly right. And that must have changed because to be honest, and I apologize to all, I did my initial verification and testing in 10.2.500. This is 10.2.700. And when I just did another test on this email, I did have to identify what the temp table was for the record, which I will be doing here. So thank you much. And hey, my bad. So we are going to look here at order entry. So this is going to be on order head because this order head has the auto print checkbox on it. So I know it's order HED. We could search it, but we don't need to. So here again with the auto print, we're going to use a standard data directive here. There are some already out here, so I'm going to do a new one, new standard directive, and this is going to be okay. Description, even though we don't really need it, and we're going to make this one enabled. The other ones are not. We're going to save, and we're going to go to our designer. So this is going to be the same type of process as setting up the workflow for the change logs. It's going to be a data directive. We're going to start. Again, I need a condition here that's going to identify when this is going to fire. Order head. So we're going to link over to our condition. We're going to add a condition here. Oops, I'm sorry. That's on variables. I need to do it. You have to select the right part of the workflow on the canvas first. Now we're in condition, you see here. Now we select condition. And from here, we want to just look at when that field for auto print ready changes. So we want to look at when a specific field changes. Okay, so we're going to look, what field is that? We're going to look here. This is on the order head, so we should be able to find one called auto print ready. And you know what? I'm going to sort by alpha because I know it's going to be A. Auto print ready. There we go. I'm going to save that. So that's when it's going to fire. When it changes from any to another, no. We're going to go from any and then to true. So when it's selected as true, that's going to fire off this this condition to do the auto printing. And you'll see within this in other selections here, we have the auto print. So again, this is one you'll see that you don't see change log here because you can't do a change log from a standard directive, only from a in transaction, and vice versa. We didn't see the auto print in the in transaction because you can't auto print unless you saved your data to the database to generate the report that you're going to auto print. So I'll drag the auto print out. Make sure you choose the true side of the condition because this would be false. We fire, see true and false. We'll take the true side, go to the auto print, and then we come up here right away to print the specified report with specified options with the rule. So first we're going to fill in what's the specified report is, and that's going to be our order ACK, I believe. So we're going to search here and make sure it's SQL Server reporting. If that's what you're doing, there are other options. It could be a bartender label. It could be an import financial report, etc. And yeah, here, you definitely want to just have the default that you're using the order head table because that's what we're firing from. We're going to search what reports are available here, and there's 3 different styles. So what style do you want? We're going to choose the standard SSRS. Select that and say OK. There we go. Now we have to decide what options on this report here. So first there's the options and then the parameters. First off, in the run schedule defaults to queued. I don't want that. I want it to run immediately. So as soon as the BPM detects and it says that we have that checkbox set to true, or that it was changed to true, it's going to run immediately. The action is auto print, okay, and then you can use a default printer that's set up on the machine, or a server printer, which has to be set up server side. Typically, you're going to want to set these up on the server. Uh, you know, it's going to vary by your environment. But you can also set up a client printer. That'll depend on where it's being run from, the actual instance of Epicor. We're going to leave this as server. I'm on a server here. And that should be good there. Now we have to also set up, oh, hold on. Yeah, because here I don't have a server printer, so we're going to print the PDF. Sorry. And there's, oh, I'm sorry. There's a quantity as well. Okay. So, and now we have to look at the report parameters. The reason that we had those errors before is because we didn't set up a parameter on the order number. We want this to be a specified table and field value, which is going to be from TT order head and the order number. So we're basically saying on this temporary table that we're firing from, I want it to be the order number, which I believe in some versions it's in a default, even though it's going to say 0 for a constant. It didn't work. The other thing is that the SSRS routing always defaults to true. And typically on a base report, you're not going to have routing or breaking. Those are like workflows within SSRS or within Epicor that are that key on things like, different workflows that you can, send email and such from there. In any event, typically you're not going to have this on a base report, and you want to deselect the routing. So we're good here, and we could, change our date format. We could, print the report parameters, etc. But we won't do that now. Okay, so we're immediate run, set to auto print, and we're on the Microsoft. Okay, that should be good. We say okay. As usual, we're going to save. We're going to validate. And sometimes when you first do these, it takes a while to validate. So while it's running, is there any questions in the chat box, guys? Well, fine.
We have a couple here. Assuming you could assign the email to auto print and place it on a button on the sales order screen to send out.
Well, yeah, that'd be a customization. With the auto print, you're going to key on, changing the data, which here we're keying on the, on the that checkbox being selected and changed. So could you do a button? Sure, but that's going to be a customization.
Okay.
And
another one is,
okay.
Go ahead.
I just said I'm going to do the email next, from the base product here. So.
Okay. Another question for you was, is there's a targeted version to fix APR to work off the reports down, not have to create a data directive?
I do not know that, so I can't speak to what they're going to, when they're going to put that fix in, but so unfortunately, I do not know.
And the final one, if you're a cloud-hosted user, you can set up Edge Agent Network on a local server PC to be able to print to a network printer like that instead of having to do client printers. So using the Edge Agent sounds like it would be a way to handle the cloud people being able to auto print.
I believe that would be correct. Thank you. Yeah, I apologize for not being geared towards the cloud here. This is all geared on-prem that I'm actually doing right now. So, and you cloud people, sorry about that. All right, so let's see. We have our sales order up here. Okay, so we're going to save that. I created it. I noticed that the auto print ready is not selected. So again, the BPM is set to look at the change of that field on the record. So if I select that and then I save the record, that's going to write it to the database, and that should kick off the process. Let's go and check to make sure that it's running and that's not something half-baked here. Uh-oh, something went wrong. Did I not? Let's go and have a look here. No, it's running. I don't know what that was. Maybe it was. Okay. Yeah, it did fail. Okay. It didn't like the printer. Okay. I'm using a different server this time. So hold on. Let's just run back here and let's see what we have available to us here. So we're looking at this options and then our printer here. So do we have other options here? That's set to run somewhere else. So frankly, is this going to allow me? Yeah, okay. This because this is the client that we're on here. That should work. We're going to apply that. That's okay. We're going to say, okay, that was just telling me it doesn't recommend using a client printer. But for the sake of today's, I believe that's going to be our best chance. We're going to save here again. We're going to run back. Now I have to deselect that and then refresh, please. I have to deselect it and then select it again. That is going to trigger the BPM because it's changed from anything to true. Now we should be running. With any luck, we're going to see a report come up here. No error. It's coming. Come on, Epicor, you can do it.
And Bill, while it's doing that, we have a question from Jacob. Is there logic that auto sets the auto print ready back to false after a print request is sent?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is there logic that auto sets the auto print ready back to false after the print request is sent and handled?
No, you'd have to do you have to do a manual BPM to do that. It just stays where it's at, and that would be a good idea. Yeah, that would be a good suggestion for software enhancement. But yeah, you have to create that. And this did not run.
You could also put that on the data directive and have the value get set back.
Says it ran. Why is it not happy? Okay, well, this is what there was some disconnect there. And again, I apologize. I'm using a different server because it's a newer version. But yeah, that's what's going to fire off there. When you, and again, that's on the change of this field. It's how that's created right now. Hey, Fred, how am I on time?
You are right at time.
So I would like to show the email. So there's someone after me, so I guess I'm over. Damn it. Yeah, because here, let me just run back here for just a quick sec. From your auto print, okay, from here, if you select email and then you go to setup, that's where you have to put in, and this is just a static subject and a static to, out of the box, It doesn't allow you to put in variable fields in here. Now, from the send email, which is a different process, and you can add in, and from this record, what's the sales order a number, what's the PO number, etc. So the bottom line is, it will send the mail to to the individual or distribution list that you have in here, but you can't easily, with the base product, with some customization, have it look up other emails or send, or change the body to have the record name in there and such, which is unfortunate. That can be done with custom code, and I probably shouldn't even mention this, but there is a product by Codabears that actually does that, called QuickPrint. So if you want to look on the web, it's out there. Anyway, I apologize for not being able to show the email, but basically, and when the auto print kicks off, it just sends that mail, to the recipient, and with the note that you have in the body, and you can CC. Oh, and you have to select and what you're sending. So, typically it's going to be a PDF from things like this, where we're reporting if it was an invoice or if it was a sales order acknowledgement and such. So I guess if there's
people also send Excel files to like vendors to have them update supply chain comments so that they can be DMT'd back in.
That is true. And so if there's other questions, please, put them in the chat, and we'll try to answer them by email afterwards, because I think I'm out of time, huh? And thank you, everyone, for your time. I hope this was valuable, and have a great day.
Thanks, Bill.